Roll with me. Who is that in the room, playing the high keys while I play the low? It's not another person when we are making. The border only begins when the song closes, so who is that in the room with me? It's no one that I've met before. Afterwards, you can look at the changes we went through to get to the end of the roll, but not now, not in the middle of things. While the wheel is turning, you cannot see the spokes.
Who is that in the room? The Argentine writer Jorge Luis Borges is known for his experiments with fictional authors, writing reviews of non-existent books, for instance, or flirting with the boundaries of plagiarism through the fictional writer Pierre Menard. But alongside the metaphysical and epistemological quandaries teased out in his short stories, Borges engaged in a very particular sort of authorial experimentation, that of collaboration. Over many years, he paid visits to the house of his friend Adolfo Bioy Casares, and after dinner, the pair would sit down and write. But who did the writing? As Borges put it in an interview given in 1966 in the Paris Review, Bioy and he had somehow begetted an author who is different from either of them, and who drove the work forward in his own manner. This third person, this fictional surplus begotten out of the act of collaboration, has a name, Bustos Domecq, author of detective short stories for the most part, who has his own characteristics, creative style and manner of working that is quite different from those of Borges and Bioy. Borges, who worked together with other writers, translators and editors, regretted that often, in his own words, one feels that the collaborator is a kind of rival. In contrast, he referred to his writing with Bioy as the best manner of collaboration, when the work is generated by a third entity with its own idiosyncrasies. As Borges says, this is a quote, "Once the story is written, if you ask us whether this adjective or this particular sentence came from Bioy or from me, we cannot tell." In this sense, and borrowing the concepts of French philosophers Gilles Deleuze and Félix Guattari, who in their turn worked collaboratively on 3 publications, creativity is a rhizomatic activity occurring between points, in the liminal edge between individualities, materials, and locations. In his dialogues with Claire Pernet, Deleuze says of the creative function, this is a quote, "There is no subject, but instead collective assemblages of enunciation, no specificities, but instead populations, with their own relays, their echoes, their working interactions." It is obvious that this sort of collaboration poses problems to the traditional notions of authorship. The author is not dead, but rather was not there in the first place, not as the usual entity with his or her intentions and creative originality. What we find instead is a particular proper name. Collective and group names designate no one and everyone in the collective or group at the same time, like a fictional third person, begotten at the intersection of ideas, partnerships, and localities. Very often, however, these kinds of interactions don't have any name attached to them, no proper signifier to pin down the momentary forms and shapes of collective creation. After the act, we can get back to our usual individuality, our comfortable and organized subjectivity, our body with organs, as Deleuze and Guattari may say. But right here, right now, in the middle of something, we ask, who is that in the room when we are making?